Here we go. I'm Mons Nazman. I believe in being inspired. I believe in achieving goals, and I believe in working digitally. I will get my laptop ready and take some notes. Here is me being inspired by Kirsten, venture cap entrepreneur.
So I was really eager to work there. Problem was when I applied, there was no jobs, but the only job opening was one in the real estate department. So I was like, I'll take that job,
okay.
and then I'll figure out what I want to do here. So I started out covering REITs, and I pretty much was covering REITs at the same time, scoping around for like who had a space that they were covering that would be more interesting or fun to me. And in that, I identified retail, and so I just sort of wormed my way into retail. And I think, yes, I thought 1 year, and I told myself, you have to take 1 year. You cannot take a job in this 1 year. You must go and meet people and talk to people about their careers and find out what else is out there. And 1 year went by fast, and 2 years went by fast, and I met a lot of amazing people, and I came out of my shell, and I got offered consulting projects, and I thought, I could learn something. I'll take that project on. And my MO always was, as long as I was learning something that felt practical, that had a forward motion to it, and as long as I was growing as a person and felt like I was adding to my being, like I was okay with it. There was definitely a point in time where I was like, I'm doing a lot of consulting projects. Did I just become a consultant inadvertently?
Right.
So I thought, well, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an investor. The one thing I never doubted the whole time was I still wanted to be an investor. That was always true. I didn't maybe I had a minute where I was like, maybe I should go work at a company. But then I was like, well, I should be careful what I say. But I was like, I get bored. I like learning about all the new things all the time. So 1 year turned into 6, completely unplanned. I did not have a plan to start a venture firm until about 6 months before I did. I really was following like my nose and my gut all along. At that moment when I was like, oh, maybe I'd become a consultant, I better, figure out how to be an investor. I started raising individual special vehicles to invest in private companies. I had a portfolio of like 7 or 8 of those. I'd raised like $20 million by getting like $25,000 checks. It was like, a little bit fierce, I guess. I think at that point too, people were probably like, what are you doing? And I felt even more conviction that I had to like prove that I was doing something. By 2008, I had a good little portfolio. I didn't have the whole thing wrapped in a bow the way I wanted it in terms of how I would present a fund offering or a thesis, but I had some good companies and I felt like I could leverage that.
Were you doing this all on your own?
Yeah. Oh, all along the way I wanted a partner. But
you're out raising money and finding companies and dissecting the companies and investing in the companies.
You know what I'm doing?
Alone.
I am. And I think we were just talking about this a little bit before in a different context, but it's related, which is like the only reason that is even possible is because I loved it. When Michael pitched Dollar Shave Club, really, I wasn't excited about a razor. There's razors out there in the world. It's a competitive category. It's a generally low margin category. But what I did get excited about was him understanding the guy customer, the male customer who was, spending time online. The friction of shopping had been broken down by online, so he was getting more comfortable starting to do some of his own shopping. With content and information and inputs, he was thinking more about grooming. If he wanted to go and buy a grooming product, he at that point went to Walgreens and was greeted by a sea of products that had been founded 50 years ago that didn't speak to him. And he just felt like it's timely. I can meet that guy where he is with a message that resonates with him. And there's an entire suite of products that can be built around with that in mind. And by the way, if I do that, I've built a business that solves some of these problems the industry is facing. So like that was, yes, there were other like direct-to-consumer businesses that had started. The first one happened probably 50 years ago. A lot of them have been direct-to-consumer businesses, but thinking about like leveraging a new model, thinking about really pushing for scale, thinking about how you fit into the ecosystem, that was new. I think, with that level of ambition. And certainly so was Facebook at that point. So he had like an unfair marketing advantage to take advantage of. Challenge. You do it in the context of a relationship. You ever have like somebody who you thought was really special that you wanted to be friends with, but the way you were used to doing it like didn't quite work and you had to think a little differently? I mean, you just have to approach it with like humanity in mind. I mean, this is maybe going to sound super simplistic and maybe other investors are like, whatever she's talking about. But my playbook in this, if I have one, is to say, like, when I go in to negotiate a deal, I try to tell an entrepreneur what I'm trying to accomplish with my deal. I mean, try to make it like you've told me your personal story while you're building your business, what you're looking to achieve. I've asked you what success is. Like, I'm going to assume that part of this partnership we're thinking about getting into involves both of us wanting to be successful. So here's what success looks like for me. Here's what I need. I got to fund it this big. I got 20 deals. I got to put one. I can't pay you that. I can only pay you that. You know, try. And I'm like, oh, just trying to achieve where we can at least like start out with a place where we both have a chance to be successful. I find that like most people are pretty rational when you put things in those terms. You know, really need to have people who can take a vision and turn it into action. Great, have a vision, you know,
right.
that's a starting point. But you need to be able to take like one foot in front of the other and start some motion.
I've heard you describe it as you covered teen retail stocks.
I did cover teen retail.
And that meant you spent a lot of time thinking about how consumers buy, what consumers buy,
Yep.
you know, spending time in malls and so forth, which strikes me as a good background for a consumer investor, obviously. But I'm curious, when you decided to leave that world, what was the insight? Why did you think it was time to start looking at early stage disruptors in commerce?
When my public market career really spanned almost 10 years, and it mapped pretty closely to a cycle. So at the beginning, it was, you know, I did cover retail stocks specifically. I moved later on into consumer more broadly defined. But in retail in particular, the growth cycle was fueled by the mall and by teens having a place to congregate and spend money. And it turns out if you give, you know, teens $20 and drop them off at the mall, that is a lot of money getting spent.
And they will spend it all.
Yeah, and on the backs of that opportunity, a whole generation of new stores cropped up to take advantage of that new customer and of the real estate play. And so there was this time period where it was about growth and it was about new concepts and new models and following that path. And being an investor at that time, I really fell in love with investing. I had a chance to kind of appreciate the qualitative and the quantitative marrying up. And that's when I started spending time in the malls and getting to know the customer and everything. And cycles play out. And during the time of the growth in the mall, technology was also becoming something that was more prevalent. Amazon was born at the kind of midpoint of that cycle, eBay as well. And after the dot-com crash and a little bit of a weaker consumer, the conversation really changed, and it went to, oh, technology is going to take over everything. Buying online is so much better. There'll never be another store. And you know, I don't know whether people believe that or not, but it was enough to get people to think differently about investing. And so it went from a growth mindset to kind of a, you know, how can we either get operational efficiencies or squeeze out costs in our business? And as an investor who really kind of fell in love with investing, you know, really lit up when you could bring the qualitative side in, that wasn't as interesting and as exciting. And I think, you know, my only big observation at that point was one cycle had played out, and cycles are cycles. There will be another cycle starting, and I would like to play a role in that.
What is your opinion about Kirsten's video? Write in the comment section below. I was inspired by the focus she has on friction. I added over 85 action items. They were mostly about reducing friction in my own work. And I think that will reduce stress and increase passion. And I think that's really important. I believe in being inspired, achieving goals, and working digitally. Be passionate, learn new things. Click and subscribe below.